like very professor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think honestly, that's my vibe.
Yeah.
Is like that's why I wear a lot of blazers and t-shirt and blazer things like that. Is like
I don't mind those on you, but I do like the other ones much better.
Yeah.
Jeff, sexy Professor Wolfthal.
Again, not prescription in the least, but because I spend a lot of time staring at computer screens during the off season,
you might as well look good.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I wear mine.
It is fashion choices all up in here.
I will say I have learned my prescription is not, I don't have a very strong prescription.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can exist in the world without my glasses like pretty well.
Yeah.
And so there was one day at rehearsal, I was like, oh yeah, I need to find my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Nandi was like, you can like walk around without your glasses. And I was like, yeah, I can see. Things hit a certain point and they start to get blurry, but it is not anything that like I've driven home like to Georgia without wearing my glasses, which is probably dangerous. I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe if
anyone has someone on the police force, I did not say that. But the problem thing is I hate contacts and I love sunglasses. So sometimes I just forego the like, well, I'm gonna, well, hello.
Hey, Sam.
Family.
What's up? And hey, Michael. But hey, Sam.
They're here for an interview.
Sam, you'll never guess who's spending a couple nights at my and Jules' place right now.
Hint, it's not me.
We'll see if he puts any. I was never going to see if he puts any guesses in the.
And now we wait
in the chat. It is Matt. Yeah, it is Matt. That's a good guess. That was a good guess. Very well done. Very well done.
Well done. You've passed trivia.
Yes.
We have nothing to give you.
Mazel tov.
Your $25 gift card to Mix All American Pub will be in the mail.
Look, I love doing trivia.
Absolutely.
And a couple of weeks ago, my buddy Jeremy Grafe and I went out just for drinks, and it happened to be trivia night at the place that we went. Neither of us knew. So they were coming around passing out the trivia sheets, and they were like, do you want to play? And we were like, I don't know.
Twist my arms.
Yeah. So they were like, look, just take the answer sheet and play if you want to play. There weren't a lot of teams. There were like maybe a dozen. And we were like, okay, fine. And then they started asking the questions. And we were like, oh, we know that one. Oh, we know that one. And we ended up winning trivia that we never intended to play.
I will say my favorite experience of trivia was one night I went out to trivia with Doug Wallace, Carrie Wallace, Tammy, and her husband, Ryan.
That was a blast.
And here's the thing. The four of them all have very specific knowledge about different things. So, like, Doug is in charge of, like, the sports. Ryan is in charge of, like, the music.
Yes.
Carrie is in charge of, like, random pop culture and, like, really niche things. And Tammy is the surface level, like, pop stuff, like, you know. And then there was me who was like, well, if they throw something at us, musical theater. And I think we won that night. I do think we won. I love trivia. I'm not good at it. I played trivia in Moundsville, West Virginia, the last Missoula thing I did. And we played, and it was at a Mexican restaurant. And it was cool because you played it from your phone and you got to choose like a music that if you were the fastest responder, they would play music and it would be this whole thing.
Okay.
And it wasn't like you just had paper and filled it out. They would ask a question and you would have to pick the first letter of the answer in a certain amount of time.
Oh.
And so you tried to be the quickest one. Me and the girl playing trivia were not. weren't good. We weren't good. That Jackbox Party trivia murder thing is fun.
Maybe that the next time IT does a pre-recorded Jackbox game.
Murder.
Yeah. Could be a murder party.
It's the cast of the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair loves Jackbox. And IT loves Jackbox.
Yes, we do.
I will say it is very interesting. Because when the IT crowd plays Jackbox, it is like improv sports. Like it is us trying to be. But a lot of times when I play Jackbox, and not so much with the cast, but like when I played it in college, it is just people being like, I'm going to insert some stupid joke that, we know that's, and it's, you can only hear so many, like, foot fetish jokes before it's over, you know. But if you throw in like Haley Crossan's crusty socks with the foot fetish, suddenly, I was gonna say I'm interested. I'm not, but suddenly it is funnier. It just.
We were just talking before we went on air about how safe Jonathan plays it to not make people think he has kinks that he doesn't have.
Jesus Christ!
And now here we are with Haley Carlson's crusty socks.
The thing is, there are just people in our life, like, I won't say any names for anonymity and, like, you know, the safety of, you know, whatever. But there are people in our lives who talk about certain kinks, and it's not like, you know, it's not like BDSM or things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the ones on the outskirts, and they talk about them enough. Talk about them enough that you're like, you're into this, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like, in some small fashion, it's like you're into this. So I try not to do that. I would not say I do a very good job of that. So, but I like to think that the ones that I do talk about are they're more middle of the road.
Look, you are a good Christian woman.
Absolutely. I don't sin. I don't know what sin is. I've never touched a sin in my life. I've looked at it, but I've not touched it.
Wait, what is going on in Atlanta?
A recently arrested defendant drives away from the jail.
Did they just like steal a car?
Is this? Well, also, like, listen, there's a lot happening in Georgia because, like, Trump is in like Fulton County. That's a whole thing. It's been Georgia's been hitting a lot lately.
Maybe is that what Debbie's talking about?
Maybe so. Maybe she's being like coy about it.
Yeah.
See, look at that. I am good at trivia.
I love the definite disappointment in Debbie's voice as she was it's Trump, guys. It's Trump.
This should turn into reaction stream. I will be honest, I think most of the interviews have been that, like, more like crowd led. But I will say, y'all did turn out some solid questions. So I'm excited to interview you.
Yeah, I am excited to see what's in store.
I will say I did laugh because Alex Stumpoli was like, well, we know who Jeff's favorite is because he asked you to interview him. And I go, I want to be clear that 2 weeks ago I was like, hey, do you want to be interviewed? So,
yeah.
I mean, I am still Jeff's favorite, but that's beside the point.
Last week, Alexis was like, you know, hey, people were asking, hey, are we ever going to get an interview of Jeff? And Alexis was like, yeah, I think Jonathan will do it. Like, totally pushed it off.
Listen, he carouses, he deserves. No, that's fair. That's fair, Sam. You are the favorite. Yeah. I can't compete with you. Like, I can't. I just can't. You are not even physically here, and you still got me beat. But you know what? It's for a good cause. Oh no, Clem is the favorite.
I was going to say, I think you're all very much missing the point that Mad Dog Pickens was always my favorite.
No, she was everybody's favorite.
Exactly.
She's everybody's favorite.
You can't not love Madison Mad Dog Pickens.
I need you to know, oh gosh, I need to text her. But every time she showed up to the fair, she would never let anybody know that she was coming. And when in 2018, when I was Sunny Bertone, I just remember turning a corner, and Alexis and I, the day before, had been talking about her and how funny she was and how much we loved her. And I turn a corner, and she's there, and I just hit the ground because I was just like, oh. I love Mad Dog. She was, that's a solid favorite, Mad Dog. Yeah. All right, you ready for this interview?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right, so the first question is actually one I came up with on my own because I realized that you have a very interesting journey on how you got here because I know you performed in like college and all of that, but this was not originally your chosen career path. And I realized that a lot of y'all probably don't know that. So, like, would you explain for our friends your interesting journey to get to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair?
Yeah. I started off as a teacher, but when I graduated from college in 2011, December of 2011, I did that extra semester. I didn't graduate in 4 years. I did 4.5. Not for any reason other than the fact that, like, I forgot to take a prerequisite for a class that I wanted to take
no.
before I could take the praxis. So in order to get your teaching certification, you have to take the praxis exams. At least in Pennsylvania. I am not sure what the process is.
I think in Georgia it's called like the GMOS or something like that.
Okay.
I'm sure it's state-based.
Yeah. So I couldn't sign up for my praxis until I took a specific education class, and I had accidentally put that off a semester too late. So I had to stick around for an extra semester. So I graduated in December. When I graduated, the state of Pennsylvania changed its like certification issuing system to a new digital thing called TIMS. And it was super backed up. So I couldn't apply for any jobs because no school would take the thing that was like, it's processing as proof that I had gotten my certification. Dang. So the only job in the education field that I could get was at a Sylvan Learning Center. Because they were hiring for tutors. And my friend, their name is Arden now. Arden had gotten a job as a tutor for the Sylvan Learning Center because they were starting a new like after school program tutoring thing.
I haven't heard of Sylvan Learning Center in years, but yeah.
So they recommended me, and I went to the like group interview for the Sylvan Learning Center after school tutors at like inner city schools. And I was so cocky. I was a cocky little shit. I was criticizing it the entire time there to the person running this workshop. And
that tracks.
Day 2, they pulled me aside and they were like, hey, all of this is clearly beneath you. We still need a site coordinator for one of our sites. So not being a tutor, being the person in charge
of everything.
The tutors that were working there. And they were like, there's this one school that the community school program is being developed through a community arts organization called Heads Up Lancaster.
Okay.
And they were like, your theater background kind of meshes with their like urban arts vibe. And so we think that you would collaborate well with them.
Yeah.
So being a cocky little shit got me a promotion.
I just feel like, is that like your lot in life? Is no matter where you go, eventually you're going to be the one running things. What do you do to these people?
I don't know. I
just love the idea of you walking into a place and doing everything you can to be like, don't put me in charge. And somehow they're like, you know what? You would do great running this place.
No, I will get to.
We'll get there.
Put a pin in that as we get further into the story. So I meet up with the community school program, and the guy who runs the community school program is also the education director at a high school that is part of a drug and alcohol rehab facility for teenagers. And so after a year of working with them through this community school and doing the tutoring, and then I also taught a theater and martial arts elective for the kids in the after school program as well. This guy who was the head of this high school part of the drug and alcohol rehab place was like, hey, we have a job opening for a humanities teacher. I know your certification's in social studies, but our social studies teacher has no plans of going anywhere, but we have this humanities job opening. Do you want to come and check it out? And I went, sure. And that is where I met a man named Doug Wallace.
May you live in infamy.
And Doug had been performing at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair for many, many years. After I got the job at Prospect Grove High School, Doug and I were always the earliest people there. And so we became friends because we would talk about improv and history, and like we had a lot of, and Shakespeare, we had a lot of shared interests.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think you would enjoy the Ren Fair. And I went, the Ren Fair? That place is for nerds.
You are a nerd.
I wasn't a Ren Fair nerd though at the time.
Here you go again, thinking you're above people. I'm sensing a theme. I am sensing a theme. Okay, great. Note to self: if I want to succeed in life, walk into everything and be like, I'm better than everyone here.
Yes, have the confidence of a white man.
But the thing is, it would be fake. They would sniff it out. They'd be like, "Nah, you put that on." So you and Doug Wallace,
we became friends very quickly, like to the point where some days I would have to get to school a half hour earlier than I normally would to be able to get work done before Doug got in, because all we would do was talk to each other until school actually started and we like went to pick up the kids.
That tracks.
So Doug was like, "Hey, you should audition at the Ren Fair." And I was like, "I'm working this job." And then I was still doing the after school program at the other school. I was like, "I'm working 2 jobs. I'm working 12-hour days. I don't have time to be an actor at a Ren Fair." And he was like, "Audition." And I said, "Maybe." And auditions for the Blackfriar Company, the part-time company, came and went. And I didn't go. I never signed up for an audition. And so he was like, "Hey, why didn't you sign up for an audition?" I was like, "Doug, I'm busy. I can't do it."
I'm not that kind of nerd.
So the next round of auditions for the professional company came around, and one day went by. I still didn't sign up for one, even though Doug told me to. It's a Saturday, and I'm at the mall with my girlfriend at the time. And I get a text from Doug Wallace that says, "I signed you up for an audition slot. Be here or embarrass me."
Well, that's one way to get somebody at an audition.
So I went in, I auditioned, I got cast. I ended up doing the Blackfriar thing. And then at that point, I had gotten a different teaching job. After being a Blackfriar for a while, in October of the next school year, I had gotten a new teaching job at a school in the middle of Pennsylvania, Central Mountain High School. And I was running their theater program and then long-term subbing on the side. But when I started long-term subbing, they started me a week into the school year so that they didn't have to pay me like a full-time teacher. Because when you're a long-term sub, you get paid like a full-time teacher.
Scam.
So they started me a week late, so they didn't have to give me benefits. They paid me like a day-to-day sub, but I was working the schedule of a full-time teacher for a semester.
Damn. That's ass.
It was.
Well,
and so with that, and I had a similar experience at Prospect Grove High School where I was a part-time teacher, which meant that I had 2 fewer periods in my day, but those 2 periods were the prep periods. So I was still working a full-time schedule on less prep.
Listen, I don't mean to read you here, but I'm sensing some themes. One, where we go, they're going to wind up running shit. 2, you will always do more work than you ever should. Okay, great. That's all right.
So I got tired of the education system. I got tired of schools and the way they were able to dick around teachers at the time, because unlike now, where schools are desperate for teachers, there was a surplus in 2011, 12, 13, 14. So I went, you know what? Maybe I'll leave education behind. I'm going to audition for the professional company at the Ren Fair.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I got cast, and I went, "See you later, system of education." And that is where I have been.
Yeah.
The next year, I became the assistant director for the part-time company. And then that was 2015. 2016, so at the end of the 2015 Ren Fair season, our artistic director got fired on the last day because of some stuff that I will not get into.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that
right now. Just, I miss you, Justice White. But so 2016 was kind of like a reboot year. The only returning professional cast members were myself, Doug Wallace, Sheila Barton, Jake Daly, and Pete Hedberg. And then Jules, who was there in 2014. Jules actually wasn't on cast in 2015, but then they brought Jules back for 2016. So there were 6 people that had ever done the Ren Fair before on the professional cast that year. So I was just supposed to be on cast and the improv track captain.
The perma horse, as we have
since called it, the perma horse. But then the person who was supposed to be the kind of improv director and plot show director pulled out because he got a job directing Halloween Horror Nights at Universal, way better gig,
Can't blame him.
much better pay, and more like future prospects. So like 2 months before Bach cast rehearsals began, our entertainment director called me into her office and she was like, "Hey, you're the improv director now." And the way that we're working this out is like there's going to be no more artistic director. We're going to bring someone in to direct the plot shows during the rehearsal month, and then after they leave, your job is to maintain everything. So you're directing improv and you're in charge of all show maintenance. And that is when I met Jonathan and Haley and Katie and Sam Lee. All of Thwarmp came in 2016.
Represent.
And that was also the first year of Zach Minder and Megan Jones's King Henry and Queen Catherine. That is like the start of the modern era of the Ren Fair.
Yeah. And you've been there ever since. And now you're the managing director.
I'm the managing director. I'm the head writer, which is a position I took over from Arthur Rowan because Arthur has less time because of twins and all of that stuff. So, but I'm only able to be head writer because of the experience I got writing trunk shows for Improv Track and Disaster Piece Theater, and all of that stuff. So every weird step on this journey has been seemingly random, but I would never have gotten to a place that I've been without all of the weird shit that happened before.
It is a weird, the whole like destiny thing like that. It is such a weird thing to hear it. Because I knew most of it, but hearing it like laid out like that, it is very much like, oh shit, it was like just continually falling into the next thing. And now here you are. That this year's storyline, it is a very good storyline.
And that this year's storyline was the brainchild of Joe Penn. Joe came up with this year's plot. We do a summit every year in January, and the first day we were going to hear pitches. I had a pitch. Joe had his pitch. A couple people had pitches, and Joe was the first one to go. And he said it, and we went, "Cool, no one else has anything now, right? This is what we're doing." And it was just agreed because it was such a powerful, cool story. So I hope you all get to come and see it. Yeah, it's very awesome.
It's very awesome. I will say it is very. I was telling Joe today, it is very. So this year, my schedule it's very fun. It's all the stuff I love, but I don't get to see any of the plot stuff, so it is really cool, like to be on the other side of it and hear like how well it's being received. And I'm very sad I can't be at TOA ever because that's when shit gets real, as is per usual. But it's just really heavy this year. So it has been everything I've seen in rehearsal has been handled very well.
And my writing philosophy for the fair plots is that the end of Tournament of Arms needs to be the low point, right? If you think about a 5-act structure, TOA is the end of Act 3. It goes into that long dark night of the soul in writing story structure, and it needs to propel us to have a triumphant victory at Joust.
I will never forget, as long as I live, Mary Huff. There was 1 year where you said that you're like,
a lot.
Joust is the low point of the day, and Mary Huff, not Joust, Tournament of Arms, chess, whatever it was at the time, and Mary Huff would leave and just be like, "This is the low point of the day."
Controlled by the sweetest person on the planet.
Listen,
she's savage.
She's savage. She is shady and hateful, but wonderful, and it's why we love her. So that's my question, because I think it is a very interesting journey.
And if you ever wanted to hear me talk about my life for 20 minutes, there you go.
Yeah, you're welcome. Also, I forget sometimes that you like martial arts is a big part of your life, and then I was like, oh yeah, because do you have a black belt?
Yeah. Second degree black belt in Shotokan Karate. And then I also trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai.
Damn. So don't mess with him. I'll beat your ass. So we do have some questions from the folks in the comments. They're actually really good. So we'll start with Erin Gualtieri. And she said, what is your favorite thing you've ever directed? Either a whole show or a particular scene or moment.
I think my favorite thing that I've ever directed for the fair is the Christmas show, and I think it's pretty universally agreed that the 2019 WMHR, the radio station, was probably the best thing that I've ever directed. I will never get better than that, but it was a great show concept that paired well with great music, and I loved collaborating with Evan Hoffman on music. Back when I took over the Christmas show in 2016, the next year I told Evan, I was like, I love the poem The Visit from St. Nick by Clement Clark Moore. and I wanted an arrangement of that, a musical arrangement of that poem that had the feeling of that scene in A Charlie Brown Christmas where everyone is oohing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" while someone is giving a final monologue. Like, that was the vibe I wanted. And Evan put together this incredible arrangement.
Because you did it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I kept bringing it back because I loved it so much.
I mean, just because of the nature of the Christmas show, you wind up seeing it, a handful of times if you're in it or if you're around. And so, like, it got to a point where I was like, oh, I could speak this. But even then, like, at the end of it, you would just weep because it is beautiful. And I think it's on YouTube.
It is. There is a recording of it on YouTube.
Great. It's worth looking up. So that's for fair. Is there anything outside of fair that has been particularly important to you?
I just this year in the off season directed Indecent by Paula Vogel. And that, I think that has been one of the most important shows for me as a director that I've gotten to work on. Because of the story that it tells, the fact that in Lancaster City, in like rural Pennsylvania, we got to tell a queer Jewish story in the attic of a church that was open and accepting and wanted that kind of thing in their space. And I got to bring in Jonathan as my choreographer. I got to bring in Alexis as an intimacy coordinator to work with actors that have never worked with an intimacy coordinator before. And so it changed their relationship with intimacy on stage. As a Jewish actor director, because my father is Jewish, my mother is Catholic, and so to a lot of very Orthodox people, I don't count as Jewish because it's not through my mother. But
interesting, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Wild.
In Judaism, the religion goes through your mother's bloodline.
That makes sense. I mean, that's your birth from, so that makes sense. But I did not know that. Interesting.
So because of my past relationship with expressing my Jewishness in characters at the fair, the story resonated with me of Indecent, of these people trying to tell their story, but being told that it wasn't appropriate and wasn't wanted. And that coming from fellow members of their community. And I think it's a really interesting, like, representation is important, but so is encouraging a positive viewpoint of a minority culture, because it's very easy for people to vilify you already and you don't want to give them any extra fuel. But also, people will only view each other as people when we see that we all share similar experiences, and vice is one of those things. I think that's something that you and I talk a lot about, is like demystifying certain vices, needs, urges, things like that. And that is, I think that's an important thing that connects us as humans, that once we break down that wall, it helps us feel like each other are more human.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I know when it was happening that you and I talked about that fair is often, especially on the directing side of things, painted in very broad strokes. It all exists in a very large scale. So the chance to dial back and to have something that is much more like scene specific and get to, direct in a much more specific type of, I know it was a nice change for you. And it was,
it shook me of a lot of bad habits that I had developed doing, like, the rush process of Disasterpiece Theater. I love Disasterpiece. It is my baby. I am so happy of where it's at this year with the group that we have and all of that. But because of the process of Disasterpiece is so fast paced, it's like the SNL experience without the cocaine. Everything is coming in hot and fast. You don't get to spend a lot of time in the process. And Indecent helped remind me of the process, which made me a better director for our plot shows this year, because I spent time talking through doing table work that you do in theater with our plot characters and spending time. And like, I spent an afternoon doing monologue work with Alexis on a monologue that her character has to give and things like that. So we really got to put attention on those dramatic moments this year.
Well, and I think it is just another step in that, like, falling into what's next is like because of that. Because I think the scene work and those very specific things is so important to the story this year.
Yeah.
You know, I've been here 8 years. You've been here 10, 11, however many.
This is my 11th season.
11th. And, you know, there are hefty moments in every year, but this one is just from start to finish very poignant. And it needed. So I think it was, you know, it all sort of fell how it should have. So it's very dope. Let's see. So another one from Aaron, which this one is actually from Evelyn, and I just think it's adorable. It is, what is it like being Steve?
Oh my God.
First, explain to our friends out there who may not know, who is Steve?
So if you come and visit the Renaissance Fair, if you came last year, if you come this year, my character that I am is Steve. And every weekend, the next thing that comes in the name changes based on the theme. So, you know, this weekend is Pirates Weekend, so I will be Steve the Pirate, which is the entire reason that I came up with Steve as a name is because in the movie Dodgeball, Alan Tudyk played Steve the Pirate, and I wanted to be able to say on Pirate Weekend that I am Steve the Pirate.
Most Jeff Wolfthal reasoning for something.
But I get a new costume every week, which is dope because it reflects the season. Our costumer made me a new costume for Viking weekend this year.
Dope.
I'm sad that I only get to wear it one weekend.
So pull it out on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wear it around the house.
So that I love that part of being Steve. But another thing about being Steve is it almost makes me feel stupid for trying so hard for years to have a memorable character with needs and goals and be three-dimensional when all you need is an easy to remember name and people will chant Steve, 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 Steve.
Listen, I will tell you, there is something to that, and it is one of the things that we talk about, you know, especially when there are, you know, new faces that come in every year. A habit that they always want to fall into, and it is just sort of a universal experience because in college we're taught, you know, it's character work, you have to be all this, but there is a level of they get very cerebral with their characters and you just don't realize that, like, that does not play well. And so I think that is the next level, is like, oh, you know, this stuff is important. It helps you make a character. Absolutely. You know, character walks and all that are so important. But then there comes the point where it's like, oh, it is sometimes just as simple as like, I just need a name that people can chant. So, you know, it just, you never know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's silly stuff like that, which is a beautiful thing about the place we work.
Yeah.
So this one is from Dan Gualtieri, and I am just interested because food is a very important part of our relationship.
Yes.
So you're in New Jersey at your parents' house, and you find out you have 3 last meals left for the rest of your life. That's it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What are they, and where? Like, what are they, and where are you eating?
Okay. Oh man.
So breakfast.
Breakfast. All right. Am I able to resurrect places that are not there anymore? Because that is also very important.
I think so. I'm not Dan, but I'll speak to this. I think in this very hypothetical sense, it is like there is no object. Like, you can be anything. Like, it is anything you want, you can have.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll say you can resurrect.
So
I make the rules.
Breakfast. Harold's New York Deli.
Absolutely. Can confirm. That is a solid choice for breakfast. Pastrami hash will change your life. The pancakes, quite literally the size of a bicycle wheel. And I can say that to you. I can say that to you 100 times. Jeff told me 100 times before we went, and you will still not be prepared for the size of those pancakes.
Matzo balls the size of a softball. You do not like it is served family style, and it is a Jewish style deli. It is not kosher. They sell bacon cheeseburgers. But it is a Jewish style deli owned by a Jewish man named Harold. Everything is massive and delicious. Like, it's not just size.
Yeah.
It is quality. And it's where my family goes every Christmas morning, you know, to celebrate our Jewish Catholic Christmas, our Jewish Christmas. And yes, Michael is absolutely, the sandwiches are a mile high. Sam, absolutely. We will take a pilgrimage.
It's worth it.
Yes. So that's breakfast. And honestly, you eat that, you don't need to eat the rest of the day.
Well, what would you have there? So like,
pastrami hash.
Yep.
100%. And then I would probably do a chocolate chip pancake because you got to have the sweet and the savory. I don't want to fill up my stomach with excessive eggs or anything like that. Like, just give me the pastrami hash. It is pastrami, it is potatoes, it's peppers, it's onions, it's greasy, it's savory, it's delicious.
Good. When we went the last time, obviously there's leftovers, and I am on that stuff for like 3 days, and it was so good. I dream about that pastrami hash. All right, so that's breakfast.
So that's breakfast, and because the stipulation is I have 3 meals left.
Yeah.
It didn't say 3 meals in one day. I just have 3 meals left to live. Harold's will sustain me for an entire day. So I have now added an extra day to my life.
Thank God.
Just by eating Harold's, whereas otherwise I think it would subtract.
It's definitely it's definitely doing some damage. It's like that saying of like, every time you eat a hot dog, it takes like 10 minutes off your life.
Exactly.
Like there's definitely some time shaving off at the end every time you go to Harris, but it's worth it.
For lunch, I would resurrect the old Peter Pank Diner on Route 9. They were the diner that I grew up going to. Their cheeseburgers were always amazing, and their French onion soup. I am a sucker for good French onion soup.
I love good French onion.
And the Peter Pank Diner is what I will always judge other French onion soups against. So that is my lunch. Some French onion soup and a cheeseburger from the Peter Pank Diner. And then dinner, Puccinellas.
Puccinellas. also a good place. Like, dang, I love some Puccinellas.
It is a hole in the wall isn't even the word to describe it because it's a nice.
It is nice. No, it is.
There's just no one ever there.
Listen, it was described to me as a potential mob front because Jeff was like, it doesn't matter what time of day you go in, there will be no one there. And when I tell you, when we went there, because we went to New York City to the Met to see the Renaissance exhibit, and we left and we were all starved. And Jeff was like, we'll go here. It's like super close. We did. It was amazing. But we walk in. We are the only people there. We sit down. We eat. It is absolutely delicious. Some of the best Italian food I've ever had. And the woman waiting on us, she's like, yeah, you're the first customers we've had all day.
And it was 8:30 at night when we arrived.
And on a Saturday. No, it was a Monday.
It was a Monday.
It was a Monday. But still, she was like, yep, you're the first people we've had all day. And I was like, now, mind you, they do have a takeout on the other side that is actually pretty busy all the time. But it was very interesting. You know, not that I don't believe my friends, but there is like a, you know, we are comedians. So there is this sort of sometimes natural hyperbole that comes with the things we tell. So it was interesting to go into a place and be like, oh, wow, there is no one here. And then the one will be like, yeah, it's 8:30 at night. You're the only people here. And it's like, oh, wow, maybe this is the front. But it was delicious. It's so good, in fact, that I told my mom about it. And the last time she was here, she's like, how feasible would it be for us to drive to that little Italian place? I'm like, it's 2.5 hours away. But we'll do it if you want. So.
And the shrimp parmesan, you got to get the shrimp parm there.
The shrimp parmesan. That's if I ever go back. That's one. I don't remember what I had when I went, but I remember you had the shrimp parmesan, and I tasted it and was like, "That's what I'm having next time."
Yeah.
Oh, so damn. All right, let's see. So that's this one is from Nathan James, and I'm actually curious about this one too because this has very much been a part of your existence as a human being.
Okay.
Why don't you look into the camera when taking pictures? So, quote Nathan James, I love it, but why?
So I will be honest, that is also kind of a recent development that I started doing. And by recent, I mean like, I want to say 2014, 2015 is when I started that thing of not looking at the camera when I have pictures taken of me. And it's honestly, it's because I'm a very self-conscious person. And whenever I smile in a picture, I don't like the way it looks.
Yeah.
I don't like my smile. It's weird. I'm very thankful that Jules does. But smiling in pictures, I have never found a way to make it feel natural and for it to appear natural in a weird way.
Yeah.
And at Fair, we always teach people to have character poses. And I went, you know what? We use it a lot when people ask to take a portrait of you, you know, because I don't like the like arm over the shoulder kind of taking a picture. That always feels weird to me. Also, I think that's the former teacher in me is like, I always want people to know where my hands are. I don't want anyone to feel touched inappropriately. And so I started doing, you know, I used to call it like my author, you know, my book jacket pose. So it would be something like this. Because it looks interesting. You're staring off the distance. People wonder, what are you looking at?
Look, it's mysterious.
Right, it's mysterious. And so that just kind of became my character pose.
Yep.
And then people just started noticing it and observing it. And so it just kind of became, it is the closest thing I have to a brand.
Yeah.
You know?
I will say it. I'm just going to brag for a minute. I have one selfie with Jeff from when I came to visit Murder Mystery. And it is in the time that I have been here, the only picture that I've seen of him where he is looking at the camera. And when we took the picture, he even said, he was like, I'm going to look at the camera for this. And I was like, I felt so honored. So yeah, it is. But I think that's smart. It is interesting because a lot of our job is taking pictures of people. We wear very pretty costumes. They want to see them. And so it is interesting. You don't think about how important that is, but then it is. And it's funny how like things stick with you. And talking about like the hand thing, after tea time, like Alex and I, it's like a receiving line some days, which not a bad thing. I'm not complaining about it. It makes you feel great. But he and I, it is like this unspoken thing that if there is ever, it's two of us and someone is between us, our hands rest on each other. We never touch the person in the middle. And I think mine comes from like, that is the thing with Missoula. It's like, if you ever take a picture with a kid, you know, like we are never supposed to like encourage it from the kids, but if they ask, obviously we're not going to be like no, but it is like in the picture, it's like they want, you know, like make sure they can see where your hands are so you don't. So that's very smart. So I can understand that. But yeah, it is. I would agree that that's very much your brand. It is. Also, I would like to point out that the other day, the picture of the directing staff from the day we took pictures, Katie Berman commented, I was like, Jeff is like a daddy in this picture.
What does that even mean?
You look good in the picture. Listen, you figured out how to hold yourself.
That's what it is.
Listen, I gotta figure that out because sometimes people catch me from the side. Like, woo, boy. All right, so that's that one. Let's see. Brenda Murray, Sir. I've never said this last name out loud. Saracini. I hope I said that right, and I'm so sorry if I didn't. But it's Seb's grandmother, Sebastian. Sebastian would like to know if you've ever watched Titanic, the movie, which is fitting, and you'll find out why. But if so, what was your favorite part?
Oh man, I have not. I have watched Titanic, but I was probably Seb's age the last time I watched Titanic because it came out in what year? Like 1990?
Yeah, it's like the late 90s.
Yeah. So I was 8 years old. And that is a 3-hour-long movie on 2 VHS.
It is.
So it's like, when I was that age, I wasn't a huge fan of the Iron Giant either.
Interesting.
And this sounds like a weird tangent, but it's not. And it's because, like, if someone is watching Titanic, that takes up your whole afternoon. And there were no superheroes. There were no, like, none of the things that I was interested in were part of the Titanic. And so it was an inconvenience to me.
Yeah.
Very similarly, like once a month, it seemed there would be an Iron Giant marathon on Cartoon Network, where that was the only thing that was playing. I'm like, I want to say it was like on Christmas or something like that.
Yeah,
they'd do it. And so I was like, oh, it's freaking the Iron Giant again. And now,
the Iron Giant again.
Now that I'm an adult, I love the Iron Giant.
I've not seen it.
It's emotional.
Let me take it back. I've seen it one time. There are a lot of movies that I've seen once and then never touched again, and it falls in that category.
Yeah.
So, but interesting. That is interesting. But I agree with Sam. It is very much it is a 3-hour film that we all know how it ends.
Right.
But I can appreciate, like, when I watched it, it has been I watched the first VHS where it's like sappy romantic, comedy, and it's like cute and sweet, and then I don't watch the second half where people start dying. But Jeff, could you explain why that question is so funny?
So, Disaster Piece Theater this season, we are doing a new disaster piece every 2 weeks. So, we opened with Snow White, and that's weeks 1 and 2. And then weeks 3 and 4 are the next disaster piece that Jonathan is directing.
Ooh.
And we are doing Titanic.
It's going to be a great time. It is wild. We blocked it today. It's hilarious. So
if the movie of Titanic was as entertaining as Jonathan's disaster piece of Titanic, I would probably have watched all 3 hours of it. Make it an Orville Foxglove production.
Absolutely. Let's see. Aaron Gualtieri again, because I love to think about and puzzle about technical theater stuff. what is one thing that was a big hurdle you had to find a solution or workaround for? Like a difficult prop, set, or blocking type situation.
I have always been very fortunate, especially in my time at the fair, to work with a great technical staff. And I was kind of spoiled by
very much so.
Ian Smith and Lily Steiner and Julia Bowman have ruined me forever. We have a very talented team now. But I was always my formative year, but like I don't have a lot of technical knowledge. I can carpenter, I can build things, simple things, but I'm not a designer, and I don't have a terribly artistic eye in the way that like a props person needs to. And so,
well, like you said the other day, like if you list out the things that like are your like skill set, creativity is like somewhere in the middle,
right,
which I disagree with, but that's
but back when I was learning martial arts, my sensei once told us, you don't need to know everything, you just need to know someone who knows the thing that you need to know. And so Julia Bowman, Sam Lee, Lily Steiner were those people where I never needed Ian Smith. But Sam Lee too.
He knows some stuff.
Were those people that knew the things that I needed to know all the time. And I've not been able to work with them the past couple of years, and it's made me very sad. When I directed Indecent, there is an effect at the very end where there's this scene that gets referenced a lot and shown, and it is the rain scene, they call it. It's this very beautiful, heartfelt scene between these two women in the rain, and it's the first time that they feel free to express themselves and be in love with each other and all of this stuff. There's so much power in this rain, and there's this thing in film language, and it applies to theater as well, where like everyone is equal under the rain. And it's theatrical a couple times where it's been presented otherwise in the play, but then at the very end there's a moment of magical realism where we see it again, but it is actually supposed to rain on stage. And like I said earlier, we were in the attic of a church, this very old attic of a church, which lent itself environmentally very well to this play. Because it felt like an attic that people would have hidden during the Holocaust. But there were electrical outlets on the stage that could not get wet. And so we were like, how do we make it rain on stage without electrocuting everyone? We couldn't do
a valid concern.
We didn't have the budget for a traditional like rain machine that cycles and a track and stuff like that. And we wanted to look like rain. So we were like, okay, maybe with like lights and glitter, we can create a rain effect that's a little bit more realistic and good sound effects. And then again, not even my idea. Someone suggested, well, what about like a tent mister? And I went, that's great, because mist atomizes in the air. It's not going to create puddles in the floor like a rain machine would, or like a PVC pipe that lets water droplets fall out. But it still gets the effect. But it gives us the atmospheric and environmental effect. You can see that it is wet in the air. And so that was a huge problem-solving thing of how to make it rain on stage in a non-traditional theater stage environment. And it ended up looking fantastic. I loved it. I thought it was great. I was very happy with how it turned out. So huge props to Catherine Campbell Rossi for the idea of a tent mister. That then even that idea was like, well, usually those are hooked up to a hose, and there was no like spigot for water to go through this thing. So I found a bucket top tent mister that goes over like a 5-gallon bucket that you get at Lowe's, and it's powered by an 18-volt Ryobi battery. And it was $60 on Amazon. And I was like, great, I'll buy it and test it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then I return it to Amazon. And it worked, and it was so awesome. And it was just so many problem-solving steps that felt so satisfying.
I love that.
Mhm.
I will say I'm still very sad just because of the timing of things and going home that I didn't get to see Indecent. But I have heard nothing but fantastic things about it. And what I saw of it was incredible. Jumping back just a bit to Sam's question, I know that comic books are a passion of yours. Is there an obscure comic book hero that you would like to see gain enough attention to maybe get a show or movie?
Ooh, that's good. So just to give a little bit of a background, back when I was teaching at the school that was part of a drug and alcohol rehab facility as the humanities teacher, I taught a class on U.S. history through pop culture. And part of it was a unit that I called visual literacy. So we would use comic books to improve students' literacy, which was awesome. I loved it. I'm a huge comic book nerd. If you could see to my left, I have a shelf of comics, and my tablet is just full of them. I was so thankful that Netflix adapted Sandman really well in season 1, and the audio dramas are even better. So that is a comic series that I was really excited to see come to life. I would love to see more of a John Constantine. He's not obscure. I think John Constantine is a pretty well-known superhero.
I have no idea.
He is an occult detective.
Okay.
And that just vibes with me in a lot of ways. He's a con man, which I think that helps draw the connection a little bit better. But Keanu Reeves starred in a movie that they did of him, which was a decent adaptation, but he's British. He was based off of Sting. Like, he's supposed to be this kind of, he's from Liverpool. So there's like this very grungy 1980s English punk thing about him. He was in a punk rock band. So that movie happened, and then the CW did a series of Constantine Hellblazer, and it was really good. They got a Welsh actor to play him, and that Liverpool is right there, so he was able to do the Liverpudlian accent really well, and it hit a lot of the themes that I like about Constantine. It used a lot of the recurring characters and was setting a lot of stuff up, and then it got canceled before the first season concluded.
Classic.
They brought that version of Constantine, the actor Matt Ryan, they brought him back for a couple of the other CW, DC shows like Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow. But I want to see a full-fledged John Constantine, because the thing that I love about Constantine is the thing that I love about a lot of horror and supernatural things, especially in the comic book world. And a recurring theme is that the monsters are not nearly as monstrous as just people being manipulative and shitty. People summon the demons to try to use them for their ends. And so that is something that I have always connected with Constantine. He's not an anarchist, but he is very anti-authoritarianism. And that just, for someone who is constantly in charge,
someone who is constantly the authority.
But I strive to be non-authoritarian.
And I would say, as someone who has been under your tutelage, that I think comparatively to all of the people that I have been under, not like that, but in just like an authority type way, you are the least authoritarian. You are obviously authoritative. There has to be some sense of like order, but you are the least, I would say, like authoritarian.
Thank you.
So great job on that. You do have your moments. I think we all do. I think we all do. In that same vein, I am curious, just because I find this to be very interesting. So in the like comic book superhero realm, if you were like the superhero in a comic book, what would your power be? And do you have an idea of what your name would be? Like your superhero name?
No.
No pressure.
Okay. No, because I don't do a lot of self-insert into superhero worlds. Like, that's, if I were to ever write fan fiction, I don't write about myself a lot. And I think that just has a lot to do with like weird self-esteem shit that we're not going to get into
Yeah.
right now.
It's a fancy world. We don't have time.
No, but I think everyone thinks about what
Absolutely.
kind of superpowers they would have. And I always thought that telekinesis would be the best superpower because I want to be able to move stuff with my mind. And if you're good enough, you can move yourself. So telekinesis also gives you flight. So it's a little gaming the system.
See, and I'm in the same boat. I've always wanted I want some of Rogue, specifically from the animated one. I'm Southern, what can I say? But like the big hair and the sugar. But that mixed with some Jean Grey, like with the telekinesis part of it. Which I will say, this is, sorry, tangent, I know this is your interview, but the 1990, like the 90s cartoon version of Jean Grey is useless. Like, it makes me so angry because, like, if you watch it, there's an entire video on YouTube that is Jean Grey being useless for 16 minutes.
Oh, no.
And it is just like her, like, trying to lift a plate and then being like, like she, at one point, she, like, tries to run away from something and trips over a cord. And I'm like, what the hell, Jean?
Well, it's because her powers are so you have to nerf her. To it's like Captain Marvel.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it is explained in the like universe of the animated series. So, like, because of all the blocks that like Xavier put on her mentally, like it just strains her. But even then, like when she gets the Phoenix Force, my favorite is there's one where she's like floating in and she's like, I am the Phoenix, or I'm risen. I don't remember what she says, and she like says it, and she's like engulfed in flames. She's like, and then literally after she says, she goes, it just falls back into the water, and it's like, what's the point? What is the point? So that's, but yeah, I agree. I think telekinesis would be a really fun one. So it is. I know we're getting close, but Debbie Hamlin had one. What is to you the main thing to remember to be a good director?
Actually, I think this goes back to what I said earlier about you don't need to know everything. You just need to know someone who knows what you need to know. A lot of times it can become a trap as a director to feel like you need to be the person with all of the answers. And you don't. What you need to do is be a person with a strong enough vision to be able to filter other people's creativity and input. Because ultimately, as a director, you are the switchboard, right? You are coordinating the costumes, the sets, the actors. All of that is done through the filter of the vision that you have for the production. But you want to enable your team to be as creative as they can be. So it's part knowing your team. Like, again, going back to these people of Julia Bowman, Ian Smith, and Lily Steiner, was like, I knew that what I needed to give them to get the best work out of them. And I didn't need to be terribly specific. I just needed to give them ideas to build off of. One of the reasons that I like working with the people that are in IT and you know, are friends from Improv that I work with that don't get to perform with us all the time is I could trust that they would come with ideas to the table. The first day of rehearsal, I always tell my actors, if you have an idea, I want to hear it. I want to try it. But ultimately, it's my responsibility to say that's a good fit for this show. That's not a good fit for this show. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Just means that for the story that we're trying to tell or whatever we're trying to do, that might not be the best thing to communicate this. And so allowing yourself to be open to other people's ideas, to not feel like you need to have every idea and know everything, and to create an environment where people feel free to be their creative best. I think that is the biggest service that a director can provide for their team, because you are the team leader, you're the project manager.
Yeah,
you are kind of the besides like your leading actors being the face of it that like everyone sees on a nightly basis. In terms of the production, you are the face of it. And so the things that you're excited about, your team will be excited about. The things that you dread, your team might start dreading. Yeah. And so you set a tone and you create an environment. And that is what I think makes a good director, is someone who fosters a creative environment.
Nice. I think you do a very good job of that. It is very, and I mean, he's absolutely true. Every time it starts, you know, it is always very much, you're like, I don't have any ego. Please bring something to the table for me. in that same regard, do you think that the same thing applies, like in a not so much directorial standpoint, like with life as well? Do you think that like being a director has helped you in like personal ways to be like much more accepting of like different things coming your way, or just like dealing with people in general?
I think because I am a director, I am much more passive in the rest of my life because I'm like, I have to be constantly responsible all of the time. I want to not have to be responsible in the moments that I don't have
That
to
is
be.
very fair. Is it hard for you to switch it off?
Sometimes, yeah, it really can be sometimes, especially because I am friends with the people that I direct, and it is a balancing act to not feel like I am bossing them around in our outside of rehearsal lives. I never want people to feel like I'm a bossy person, and so that is just a paranoia that I have. I think improv philosophy has affected me more in a day-to-day life than directorial philosophy. The philosophies of yes and listening and creating space for your partner and setting your partner up are the things that I think have been the most important life philosophy things that I take, not so much being a director.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can agree with that. And even in the like professional side of things, like there is, especially with people that you have been fortunate to work with for years, you know what sets us up for success, and you let us have it. You lead the horse to water. We talked about like there is when we were writing Disaster Piece, there were a couple times that Jeff would just be like, "Oh well, Alex will do this, or Jonathan will do this, or Joe will do this." And it's just that's what he knows we are successful at. Mine was chewing the scenery, which isn't wrong.
No,
I mean it is what I am successful at, and he is setting me up for success. But it is you like to think. That's a lie. I am much past the point of like I have to be the romantic lead and everything. I would never be that. It is also much easier just to be like the silly, goofy.
oh my god, there's so much less pressure.
Absolutely,
So much less pressure.
So much less pressure. I know it's 9:01. So my last thing is if moving forward, staying in this and doing this, like if you could like wake up tomorrow and it is your dream like director position or just job in general, what would that look like?
I have never felt more fulfilled than getting to be the improv director. If I could teach and direct improv for my entire life and let that be sustaining in a way where that is my living, I would do that forever. I love improv. I love teaching people, and that I think has been the best thing about the job that I have now is that even though I'm not a teacher in school anymore, I still get to teach people.
Yeah.
I still get to teach improv. I still get to teach character performance and things like that. I still get to be a teacher. And I love teaching. I just don't love the institution of the education system all that much.
The institution does seem to always be the problem.
But if I could do improv shows 5 nights a week and teach classes like that is what I want to do. I love writing comedy. I love, am I the funniest person in the world? No. But I love working with funny people and bringing out the funny in them. And I would do that for forever.
Yeah.
I wish I could make IT into a career. And I need to, I need to talk to Dana Michike about business plans and things like that.
You keep saying that.
I would love nothing more than to be able to grow this into something that could sustain all of us. I just love working with these people.
Yeah.
Like you're all some of my best friends. I think it was kind of a joke for a while with Improv Track that I was very closed off. I was an angry acorn. But over the years, you and Haley, Sam, you have become the people that I can be vulnerable and open with in a way that I'm not with a lot of people because everyone's my student.
Yeah.
You know? So I just love working with you all, getting to watch you grow and growing together. And yeah, I just want to do and teach improv.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a solid answer. And I think that's a good, I tell you all the time, I'm the greatest improv show hosts ever. And also, I mean, you know, I've been there for 8 years, and there's quite a few of us that have been there for a number of years under you. So you must be doing something.
I guess.
But I will say, on a personal note, it is very interesting to see the like human experience of like starting in 2016 and the sort of experience that we all had with you. Haley Carlson, I will say, came in, and when we were all like, Jeff hates us, she was like, no. So she started off pretty strong, and I think you and Sam jived pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I think it was a journey for the rest of us, you know, like, and then we all slowly started, and now it is very interesting to see like where we live. It is 9:05, but the last thing I'll ask you is like, is there anything from this, and it can be personal, it can be professional, anything you just want to part with saying to our wonderful fans who have been here for all this time? Anything you just want to end with?
Yeah, that you don't need. All right, so this is going to sound very hypocritical of me because I crave nothing more than institutional acceptance. Like,
ooh,
I want
getting heavy. That's preach that. That's all we want,
right? But
we
like,
have to be accepted by the institution to work.
Beyond that, like I want nothing more than for like American Theater Magazine to suddenly be like, hey, have you heard about this improv director out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Like, I think we all want that kind of recognition, but I don't have a degree in theater, and I am working professionally in theater. But it's because it's something that I am passionate about. Had I actually followed my passion, maybe I would have majored in that instead of education, because I believe that was a more surefire thing, only to discover later on in my, upon graduating, that they were both a crapshoot of a job market. So you might as well
enjoy it.
Exactly. Like if you're gonna go out there and have yourself be commodified, you may as well be commodified in a thing that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And if there's something that you love, then pursue it and find people that you jive with and can create with. Yeah. And you don't need to be a professional creative to be creative. But when you get those opportunities, take them.
Absolutely. I will agree with that. And I think with that, I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Thank you for interviewing me.
Thanks for letting me come crash at your house because my Wi-Fi's acting up. And I didn't want to squander the interview by my Wi-Fi being crappy. So, no, this was great. It is very interesting. I know that I had someone approach about, and I told you about how much they enjoyed the interviews. And it is like, because we perform, so there is this sort of onness that comes from that. And it is very nice to see us just exist with each other and talk as friends, which we do. We don't always sit around and like jab, each other and barb each other. Well, they do. It's my love language. I can't help it. That's how people show me love. But it is, and it's also nice too, because part of the like journey of friendships is like there are things that I know about you that other people, and there are things you know about me that other people may not know. But there are parts of us that like existed long before we knew each other that are still a mystery. And so just to sort of like dive into that and hear parts of that is very good. So thank you for that.
Thank you. This was great. I loved getting to interview you all throughout the past month. And I'm excited to get back to doing shows now that the fair is open.
I feel like now that we've done some improv in person, I feel a little bit better about my performances. So I'm also very excited to get back to it. So thank you all for joining us tonight. If you liked what we did, shoot the Venmo some money or not. It's just us having a good time. Yeah. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to us. And have a good night.
Love you. Mwah. Oh no, I didn't hit end. There we go. Ending.